Before we get started, you might be asking some questions right now. The big one being, hey, didn't you already do a video on this already? And yeah, you're not wrong. I did cover She-Hulk previously in a video, but it was just the first episode of the show as it was coming out. With the passage of time, I thought it was finally a good opportunity to talk about the show in full, especially now that Marvel has kind of evolved in some strange directions. Plus, now that all the emotion and the hype is worn off and we can look at the show objectively, I can pinpoint exactly what went wrong here, with the complete context needed to discuss why it didn't work. Yeah, it's not a positive video. This wasn't a hidden masterpiece we all just didn't get. No, this video is an autopsy on a desecrated corpse posed in a ritualistic manner somewhere in the backwoods of Louisiana. Time is a flat circle.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion. Megan Thee Stallion.
I will kill for you, Megan. I will kill for you, Megan.
Fuck you! Love, love you and run. I'm mad as two. Pay homage to you, bad attitude. Just say fuck you. What you gotta do with attitude? Just say fuck you.
She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Yep, that show. The one that arguably killed Phase 4 of the MCU, or at least contributed to the death, and possibly also affected Phase 5 as well. Now, I'm assuming the people watching this video aren't all Helen Keller, so I don't have to explain what the MCU is or why it's such a big deal. It's well known at this point the MCU has been struggling in recent years. All the hype is petering away, and it seems like each release just gets more rocky and less exciting. Ever since Infinity War and Endgame, Marvel has just fizzled. It's pretty obvious that they didn't have a larger plan for after their first generation of actors left, and now are scrambling to get anything off the ground that can save the ship. And She-Hulk was a part of said scramble. The problem is that, well, Neo-Marvel is a different beast from the one that created the media giant in the first place. The MCU, at start, was made up of people that genuinely loved the source material. Each film fit the character like a glove and could show the audience why they were such great characters. The first Captain America movie was directed by the guy who did The Rocketeer, someone who could perfectly emulate a fun World War II style pulp film in the way that Steve Rogers absolutely needed. Thor was styled off Shakespearean tragedies, which fit the grandiose scale of Asgard and his stories. Iron Man was a character-driven redemption story about a man realizing his creations were harming the world and wanted to save his soul by destroying them. A common theme for Tony Stark. You get the idea. Each film felt like they were made by people that liked Marvel, but as the films went on, something happened. Marvel homogenized. No longer could different characters have different feeling films. Each one had to feel familiar. They had to feel like a Marvel movie. Not a Spider-Man movie, not a Thor movie, a Marvel movie. Each title had to essentially be forced into a similar formula, which caused problems. Because you went from a series of movies that all took different influences from different ideas and tones to being inspired by itself. And that leads into a feedback loop. If all you're doing is referencing yourself and cloning yourself, well then you run into the clone issue. Eventually the formula breaks down, and what once were films unafraid to stand out and have identities slowly turned into a gray mush. Inoffensive and easy for the unthinking pigs to scarf down, because that makes the line go up, you see. Despite the fact those very pigs they tried to appease actually liked when Marvel had its own spice, its own flair. They were not, in fact, unthinking sheep with fat wallets. They wouldn't just show up because something had the big red logo on it. And Marvel learned that the hard way. You see, the idea was that after Endgame, you have a new generation of characters rise up and take the place of the old, which is perfectly fine. Constantly shifting characters around means you don't have to worry about an actor getting burnt out, and you can even potentially rise a lesser-known character up the ranks if they get popular enough. On paper, it's a good idea, except if you screw something up, which is what happened. The original idea for MCU was that Captain Marvel would take the reins and be the next face for the series, someone that would lead the charge and essentially be the new Captain America. Then Marvel fucked that up. The movie was not, in fact, universally praised. It was extremely divisive, and fans did not latch on to Carol like they did Steve. At best, they thought she was boring. At worst, they downright hated the rendition, which was only made worse when Marvel proper screwed up the actual character in the comics. You see, they tried to piggyback off the Captain America Civil War movie, which, by the way, is kind of the groundwork for when things started to get a lot more messy and uncertain. Considering that event happened in the comics when there were a lot more characters to play with, there was a lot more groundwork set to build up to it, and in the end, the movie just kind of resulted in a fight in a parking lot. Anyway, that new Civil War arc, known as Civil War II, was such a hilarious disaster that it actually crippled Carol Danvers as a character. Like, when you think about what she did in that event, she straight up became a Nazi. a full-on Minority Report style dictator that did some monstrous shit. So stacked on top of the fact our movie didn't do that well, and yeah, goodbye Carol. Yeah, on paper it made like $1 billion, but everyone admitted that was simply because it was supposed to lead up into Endgame, and no one actually gave a fuck about the movie itself. They were very vocal about that. Hell, they probably spent more money on bot accounts trying to pretend the movie did well than actually spent on the movie. Alright, so Carol didn't work out. What's next on the list? How about Black Panther? People really like this version of T'Challa, and Chadwick Boseman seems on board with playing him. His solo movie made $1 billion legitimately, and people agreed that one was pretty good. Let's bet on this horse. What could go wrong? Well, then Chadwick fucking died. Yeah, that's not good. Your best possible face character just got thrown into a tailspin because the lead actor died of cancer. They tried to rectify this with the second movie where T'Challa's sister takes the reins, but that movie just kind of came and went. Once again, not the reception Marvel wants. Now, I'm not saying that movie was bad. I never saw it, but the point is that it fell short of expectations. If it's not getting everyone across the planet talking, it's not good enough. Well, shit. Ant-Man the Wasp sequel? Sure, why not? You can even build up to Kang the Conqueror, which is a good new big bad the phases could lead up to, like Thanos. Then the guy playing Kang got arrested for domestic abuse. Oh, that's not great. Oh, and by the way, the movie itself was a resounding flop, considered probably one of the worst actual MCU movies. Fuck. Okay, that's just the movies. Let's forget about those. Let's just talk about the actual Disney Plus shows they wanted to push as essentially supplementary material for the films. Kamala Khan got a show, which apparently was met with a resounding eh. Not awful, but not great. Well, how about Moon Knight? He's a cult hit character and anti-heroes usually draw people in. Well, despite the show itself not being bad, it also did not rock the world. Fuck. Back to the drawing board. How about the Marvels? Let's introduce Kamala Khan with a movie. Maybe the show I did was why it didn't work out. Why aren't people watching it? Please, I'm fucking begging you. Blades in development hell. We sold the props to the guys that went on to make Sinners. Please, can something work? Fuck it, get Black Widow a movie. Anything. Ironheart. Failure. Echo. Failure. Secret Invasion. Failure. Over and over again, this kept happening. All the new ideas they were trying to pitch, the stuff specifically there to build the groundwork to move on from the old actors and characters, kept failing. The only projects that made any money were ones using characters that are willing to break from the mold or were already established money printers. Spider-Man's an obvious winner, simply for those films being Spider-Man films. Deadpool and Wolverine made tons of money. Thunderbolts was a mild hit. Guardians 3 survived. Daredevil Born Again is still going, and it seems like that's the new bedrock the MCU will build off of from now on, which there's a deep irony there we'll talk about later. Also, holy shit, I actually forgot about Shang-Chi and Thor Love and Thunder while I was writing this. I actually forgot those happened. You get the idea. Marvel was desperate for anything to work out, and She-Hulk was stuck right in the middle of it. Spoiler, it also did not work out. She-Hulk Attorney at Law is the 2022 series that attempted to adapt She-Hulk into the MCU officially, obviously taking the Hulk's role as a sort of passing of the mantle deal. It follows Jennifer Walters after she's exposed to blood contaminated with gamma radiation after a car accident with her cousin, Bruce Banner, infecting her with the same Hulk curse that follows him. Only instead of being a violent, uncontrollable monster, she is still sentient, and the show follows her attempt to balance her condition with her job as a lawyer. Now, the show takes influence from the John Byrne era of She-Hulk comics, the sensational She-Hulk run, meaning that it leans far harder in being a straight-up comedy than a dramatic superhero series. Sensational is much more slapstick and goofy than a Hulk comic. A Hulk story usually revolves around Banner's life being a living hell, struggling to contain his literal demon and just barely able to keep himself going. A She-Hulk comic, especially by Byrne, is more of a parody of superhero comics, calling out tropes using meta-humor and all around being much more lighthearted and fun. You're explicitly not meant to take it seriously, and very rarely will it actually try to be dramatic on any level. It's just not trying to be grim. There's intentional plot holes that are called out, nonsensical story arcs that lead to punchlines, and She-Hulk herself can either be the straight man in one scene, then be the butt of the joke the next. More than a few times, she can put Deadpool to shame with the level of fourth wall breaks, and is not afraid of making Jennifer look like an idiot, selfish, or just a flat-out asshole, because it's what it takes to make a scene funny, and the show does try to emulate that, being a case-of-the-week style sitcom that doesn't really pretend to have a larger plot. Tries. Yeah, the show ain't great. We talked about the first episode a while ago, and a lot of my points from that video still hold true, but the rest of the show is an interesting place. I was fascinated by just how unfunny Attorney at Law really ends up being. It's genuinely amazing how very little jokes land, and all around there's an astounding lack of self-awareness that permeates the whole series. But why are we beating around the bush? She-Hulk's gamma hole is right there, let's just dive in, and I am gonna cut this joke short. My parents do watch these videos.
As Loli's attorney, he just wants it made clear that he does not support the idea of eating sushi off of Jennifer Walters' naked body. He fully endorses and encourages it. This is for locking me in a box for months, you asshole.
So the show stars Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters, an actress that... Alright, we're already at the first tangent. Tatiana is not a bad actress. I genuinely liked her in The Monkey. Honestly, that movie is what had me thinking about She-Hulk just due to how much better her performance was. She's not in The Monkey very long, but you can physically see she is more comfortable and able to banter in a way that could actually be funny.
I'll die. And you will both die. And all of your friends and their parents and all of their pets and everybody.
It helps that the movie was a dark comedy that had much tighter writing, styling itself off old Italian exploitation films with intentionally goofy dialogue and over-the-top gore. But the point is that she feels less awkward by leagues than in She-Hulk, because Tatiana at all times in the show just feels annoyed, like she isn't having any fun here. It's not a bad performance. This is Marvel. All of the technical aspects are at the very least going to be passable, but she never feels like she's enjoying herself. A large aspect of comedy is feeling confident in the bit. If you don't have your heart into it, then the joke is not going to land. That doesn't mean the character is confident, but that the actors can play the bit without worrying about if it's funny or not, which is the big issue with the show. None of the bits really feel like they ever commit to them. It's half-hard references or ideas that are so vague that it's really hard to tell what the bit is even supposed to be. I'm not kidding when I say there were multiple points where I genuinely had to rewind a scene multiple times, trying to pick up on what the joke was. Now, obviously, there are blunt ones. The guy who kills himself when women are yelling at him, Abomination being a hippie, the frog dude being an idiot, those are obvious, and they're at least decently fun. But so many others reach the what the fuck are you talking about stage. It's a superhero comedy, not a Robert Eggers film with period-accurate dialogue. I shouldn't have to rewind a scene multiple times to pick up on what joke you're going for, especially when it's inane and awkward anyway. Now, some headlines that came out ahead of the show's release were warning about things like the inability to write courtroom scenes, or that She-Hulk herself wouldn't appear much in the show. Those ended up being half-truths. They did get a legal advisor to help out in the courtroom scenes, and the show has one big case that they're trying to solve in each episode. And She-Hulk is in the show as much as Jennifer herself, a relatively 50-50 split, so it's not the worst case scenario. Honestly, the mindless superhero fights are some of the only memorable parts, and it's all just loud noises and explosions that I really didn't care about, because the characters all felt so hollow and uninteresting. The biggest issue with She-Hulk is that each character was a part of three groups: typical coastal white woman, wooden plank guy, and guy on Twitter the writers hate. I'm not kidding, each character is just one of those archetypes. Every female character feels like the same person with very little differences between them. She-Hulk's assistant, Nikki, felt like the exact same as the random women that run to Jennifer in the first episode. Hell, she felt the same as Titania, just less of a bitch. None of them have distinct personalities, they all talk the same, act the same, and they could have all easily swapped roles with very little issues. All Valley Girl-esque rich kids that constantly talk about how the world doesn't take women seriously, they had to earn their place while men were given everything. Every female character has at least one line drop complaining about this exact thing, to the point that you generally have to ask if the writers ever talked to a woman that wasn't just in the mirror. Like, Titania isn't even a career supervillain anymore. She's a social media influencer, meaning she talks in the same overly smug Valley Girl style that everyone else does. Part of why the humor doesn't work is because every character feels like the same thing over and over again. You can't have banter between clashing personalities if everyone's personality feels like the same damn thing. The only characters that really inject life into the show are the cameos. Abomination, Wong, Hulk himself, Daredevil, they're the only ones with personalities that aren't just the big three, so they can actually add some spice to the formula. Mr. Immortal was fun because it was the only joke in the show that wasn't just, I can't believe it's not Legally Blonde, taking advantage of the premise of a guy who's immortal, so he just kills himself over and over again when women yell at him. Relatable. If I was in this world, I'd be eyeing some windows in case I need a long drop and a quick stop too. And even then, it's half-hearted. Like, they did them out of obligation instead of because they thought it sounded fun. Oh, Strange is in the MCU now. Let's get Wong for an episode to hype that up. Daredevil just ended on Netflix and Born Again is in the works. We need Charlie Cox for an episode to hype up that version of the show, since it came out before the extensive rewrites. But the most obnoxious jokes are when they go for the social commentary. I haven't talked about the elite hacker army of trolls that try to ruin Jennifer's life. They are such a non-factor that it really is not worth mentioning. It's just taking people they hate on Twitter and going, but we depicted She-Hulk as the Chad and you as the Virgin. Take that. No, the annoying part's when they go for those canned lines about how women have it hard. Since they feel so artificial, they have to resort to lying in order to make them work, and I'm not kidding. Literal lies. A big aspect of Jennifer's character is that she doesn't know if people actually like her for her or if it's just for She-Hulk. As Jennifer, they constantly downplay how good her life is and hint towards the idea that her position is completely ceremonial. Basically, she's at her law firm as more of a mascot than a lawyer.
God, is this why they hired me? Okay, this sucks. I am totally qualified, but now everyone around here is always going to think this is the only reason I got the job. It's so unfair.
Except we see her tackle cases all the time and is given the lead role on a whole department of superhuman law. which is not treated as a joke or a fake job. It's a very real thing, and she is constantly running through media tours because of her popularity. They even throw in lines talking about how she may not be paid as much as you would think, referencing deep student loan debts all the time, and even a line that says she's only making the medium bucks.
That's why Holloway pays me the medium bucks.
Holloway could never have gone through that. He's never had to prove his value to a parade of underwhelming men.
Which immediately set off my bullshit alarm. Like, a penthouse office, talking with celebrities, able to go to expensive black tie events, and you're struggling to pay the bills. Go fuck yourself, man. There's no way she's making any less than 6 figures. Jennifer is not treated like an intern or a paralegal that's just starting to be taken seriously. She's an experienced attorney running a whole department. She very clearly is well off. And that's when it hit me. Oh, that's why they have to lie. If they admitted that Jennifer's life was pretty great, then the whole idea falls apart. They would have to acknowledge that Jennifer isn't actually struggling with being taken seriously, that her worries are self-inflicted, and that the whole women don't have a seat at the table point is hollow. They want to do girl power in the worst way possible, to the point of sabotaging itself, because instead Jennifer comes across like an insecure, spoiled brat, constantly thinking her life is barely staying afloat when she's easily up there with Tony Stark and how cozy it really is. Like, a bunch of trolls fucking with her on social media is treated as a serious plot point. Trolls on social media. Now, as stated, it is taking influence from the Burn Run, which would do a ton of wacky and downright cartoonish plot threads that you're really not meant to think about. But they run into a serious problem trying to emulate this idea. I mentioned it in the video on the first episode, that She-Hulk is not meant to be She-Hulk. She is meant to be the average woman. Not relatable, not as an average Joe pulled into the insane, no. I mean, She-Hulk is symbolic of the average woman. That's why every female character talks and acts the exact same. It's the female experience. That's why she has that rant to Bruce in the first episode, why she can never be called out for being a prick, why she never actually has to learn how to control her powers, because implying there's a flaw Jennifer has to overcome would be saying all women are flawed, that they need to live up to the expectations of men, which is why they have to lie about Jennifer being rich. The comics weren't afraid to admit that She-Hulk had money and legitimate privilege. She was a well-respected hero, part of the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, a very successful career as an attorney. To give an example, there's a small storyline in the comics where Jennifer discovers that there's going to be a movie made about her life, so she goes to Hollywood since she realizes the contract was signed when she was still Savage She-Hulk, meaning she couldn't actually legally give permission for the movie. She goes on set and discovers that it's a cheap piece of shit, putting in the bare minimum effort to actually adapt her life, with an actress that looks nothing like her, blatant lore retcons, cheap props, an abysmal script. Yeah, you can kind of tell it's poking fun at how Hollywood doesn't really take comic book movies that seriously, at least back in the 90s. As it turns out, it's all controlled by a supervillain, Krang from Atlantis, who actually isn't trying to do anything that evil. Instead, just wants to screw over the studio by getting them to finance a movie that he'll make as cheap as possible and he'll just pocket the rest of the budget. It's a scam, yeah, but compared to trying to invade the Earth or enslave mankind, it's not really that big of a deal. And yeah, fuck movie producers, those guys are jerks. Krang is blatantly ripping off the producers by Mel Brooks, sure, but it's still not doing anything that evil. So the story ends with She-Hulk attending the premiere, fully admitting the movie sucks ass, but she got to be in a movie. So fuck you. It's a storyline that breaks every rule the show lays out. Jennifer looks like an idiot more than once, constantly gets injured by a shoddily put together set, and even agreeing to promote the movie despite knowing it's a scam made to bilk the studio at millions. Because Jennifer's allowed to be a little greedy and vain, it makes her believably flawed. I mean, hell, Jennifer hates liberals and immigrants, which is based. It's a fun little story that pokes at how Hollywood treated comic book films at the time, since the Burn Run was like late 80s to mid 90s. Oh, there's a joke there that actually aged pretty well, with Krang talking about how it's impossible for a superhero movie to make over $100 million. Making your characters stupid on purpose can be genuinely funny, but the point is they have to be stupid because it's fun for them to be stupid, not because you're trying to prove a point, which the show always feels like it's trying to do. It's a weird sense of competitiveness against itself for no other reason than it feels like pure insecurity. Like if they ever make Jennifer look stupid once, some asshole on Twitter will clip it and say, "See? We told you women are dumb." Ignoring the fact that it's a fucking comedy. People are supposed to look dumb. That's how you make a funny joke. Someone's an absurd idiot, someone's a straight man. It's a classic dynamic. And especially in the context of She-Hulk, the whole point is her life is not a living hell. She has fun. That's why the stories are lighthearted and goofy and never really make a lot of sense. Not saying you can't do anything serious with her, there's been a bunch of different serious She-Hulk comics, usually when she has to pull Bruce out of the fire. But that's what makes their relationship work, and more than that, her character work. Jennifer feels a lot of sympathy for Bruce. She wants to help people explicitly because she knows how good her life is thanks to her powers. So she feels like it's only right to help people out who aren't as lucky. Her life got better, and the whole time, his got worse. The show ignores this aspect of the character in a vain attempt at relatability. Like if they admitted that She-Hulk was happy, then she wouldn't be able to be appreciated as a character. And it throws in references to women being scared of walking down the street at night as a "how do you do, fellow kids?" to get people clipping the show on Twitter, where some Instagram thought will comment with "Yas queen, speak your truth." An Instagram thought that also would never admit to having more money and prestige than they ever actually had. It's why you can tell the writers for the show are Hollywood rich kids that never actually knew what life is like for the average person. Not everybody are these weird Californian lizard people who treat therapy speak and self-flagellation for their wealth as daily rituals. It's a lot like the game Mixtape, which is the new game to make fun of at the time this video is out, since that was obviously made by a bunch of rich kids desperate to convince you guys that they are like the garage bands of old. That they too hung out in Walmart parking lots past midnight. They did in fact smoke cigarettes and watch Captain Kangaroo, so don't tell them they got nothing to do. It's fraudulent attempts at appearing human, because let's really think about this. Jennifer Walters claims that being an average white woman in America means she has to master her anger more than Bruce Banner, the Hulk himself.
So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
But really think about Jennifer's life. She has a stable family, people that love her. Hell, her mom is still alive in this version, unlike in Sensational and Savage She-Hulk, where her mom died in a car accident when she was a kid. She put herself through law school, became successful, has a group of friends and colleagues. She seems completely normal. Let's contrast her with another Marvel character. Not even the Hulk, that's a dead horse. No, let's contrast her with Daredevil, since his cameo confirms the Netflix show did happen and is canon. Right from the get-go, Matt's life is hell. He was blinded as a child from a freak accident, his father was murdered, he was trained as a soldier for a shadow war by Stick. Matt watched multiple people die horrific deaths, more than a few were ones he cared about. He works basically paycheck to paycheck, and every day he has to contend with seeing the legal system he based his entire life around fail and let absolute monsters back onto the streets. Born Again makes the problem substantially worse too. Alright, but that's Daredevil. Yeah, this character's grim anyway. Let's look at another guy. I wonder what Frank Castle's getting up to. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, Punisher's not a happy story either. Alright, let's look at somebody else. Obviously, these guys are just too grim for the example to work. How about Spider-Man? Alright, yeah, Peter's life sucks right now. Alright, fuck it, let's get obscure. Moon Knight, how's things going over there?
It's a memory. It's just a memory. It's Stephen.
Buddy, we're gonna talk about that later. Fuck, alright, Shot in the Dark. Wolverine?
This is what it feels like.
God damn it, this is getting sad. Yeah, Jennifer's life does not suck. There's really not a way to spin it. That's why the comics just embraced it. Instead of trying to desperately convince you she's actually heckin' relatable and poor just like you broke bitch. No, ironically, it just makes her less relatable, because she comes across like she's delusional, that she's intentionally seeing the bad instead of the good to a degree where it gets a tad insulting. She never sacrifices anything in the show. There's no moment where she has to truly give something up in order to reach her goal or save someone. And yeah, the show's a goofy comedy, you don't need a canned dramatic moment, but the fact that Jennifer seems completely oblivious to what she has just gets to a level where you genuinely ask, what's the point of any of this? There's no real arc for Jennifer. Even come the finale where she decides to act as a superhero comes out of fucking nowhere. There's no build up to it. In fact, the only build up is that she kept saying she didn't want to do that. Yeah, the only hint you have towards the idea that Jennifer's going to become a superhero is her directly saying she won't do it multiple times in every episode, since she wants to be a lawyer instead. Hell, I'm not even against the idea of giving her imposter syndrome where she genuinely starts to believe that people only like She-Hulk and not Jennifer. That's a really good idea for a character arc. Hell, it's been used before in the comics. The problem is the fact of, well, let that actually be a character arc for her. Let her get swept up in the hype at first. She's getting all these benefits, this brand new job, this fancy office, all of this money. She is completely convinced it's a good life. And bit by bit, she kind of starts realizing that people are treating her like a joke. She's the superhuman lawyer, the one that takes care of the idiots that dress up in spandex and try to fight bad guys. Hell, they can take advantage of the fact the setting is now in Los Angeles instead of New York, probably a pretty obvious attempt at setting up the West Coast Avengers, but hey, I mean, Los Angeles is where the West Coast Avengers are at, so it's at least something. But the whole point is, Los Angeles is not full of vigilantes, at least not on the same level as the guys who are in New York. You know, the ones that take it seriously, like how Daredevil shows up for an episode. They can use that to contrast. New York is the home of the Avengers, it has Doctor Strange, it has all these big figures, and LA just has the weirdos. So, little by little, She-Hulk kind of realizes, I don't think people take me seriously. I think they think I'm a joke. I think they don't actually like the idea of me being a superhuman lawyer. And that can be what she's dealing with in the show. Imposter syndrome. The idea she's not as good as she thinks she is. something the comics touch on all the time. Especially in the Sensational run, once again the one that they supposedly took the most influence from, though I'm also hearing that they took a lot more from the Dan Slott run, which I don't even really hate the Dan Slott run, it's just one I don't really remember, and also don't dangle Sensational in my face if you're not really taking the most influence from that. Like, come on, that's just mean. The whole point is, all these runs would talk about how Jennifer doesn't really like being Jennifer. She likes being the She-Hulk. When she's her normal self, she's small, she's timid, she's insecure, she thinks she's not really that good at anything, she's not very confident in the slightest. So, have that be the final episode. The final episode is her having to take on a case all by herself in her human form, whether her power be locked away or she can't use it. Make any excuse you want, doesn't really matter. But she has to solve the case as Jennifer. It can be a big one where there's a lot riding on it, whatever it needs to be. The whole point is you get the message across that she's finally learning to realize that it's two halves of one person. She-Hulk is the charisma and the beauty, and Jennifer is the brains. And it ends with her winning the case. Everyone respects Jennifer Walters, not just the She-Hulk. Big, happy Hollywood ending, which is all you need for a lighthearted superhero comedy thing. This is the most bottom-of-the-barrel girl power style movie ever. I mean, I literally just described basically what was the ending of Legally Blonde, and it's a million times better than what we got because it's an actual arc where a character progressed. They started as something and ended as another thing. It allows Jennifer to look like an idiot when she gets swept up in the hype and believe she's the hottest thing since sliced bread, and allows her to learn a lesson that doesn't feel like a complete betrayal of the character, and allows her to have some humility as well. There's a lot you can do with, actually following the fucking rules. Now the finale is an interesting rabbit hole, since on paper it's something right out of a Byrne comic, where Jennifer gets annoyed at how the story's going so she leaps right out of the show to go yell at the writers. Most people refer to this ending as indulgent, lazy, awkward, unfunny, out of nowhere, stupid. And the sad part is they're right. They're completely right, and it was the only bit in the show I liked. That's not to say I laughed, but I could physically see the potential with the ending since it is something a sensational comic would do. And there are some clever jokes, like having a machine AI calculate how to make a Marvel product, basically referencing how artificial and bland the brand has become. Honestly, the show could have benefited from having more bits like this, since it's the only real fourth wall break that goes beyond Jennifer throwing out a half-hearted quip, calling it a trope, or her looking at the audience to say something. It's the only time they actually let a character who breaks the fourth wall break the fourth wall. Deadpool can go bonkers in his films, but Jennifer can't? Really? The sense of humor is just bad. So bad that even when they want to get imaginative, it just feels fake. Like you can see the big light that announces "You will laugh now" at the top of the screen, and I swear to God, if I hear Megan Thee Stallion one more fucking time, I'm gonna kill somebody. She-Hulk is a comic book show that feels like it's written by people who only ever watched Ugly Betty. There's nothing here, just hollow pandering, and attempts at going "We are women, hear us roar." Like, you've got the Marvel logo. You have no bite in the first place. And this is the ultimate irony. Marvel genuinely wanted to push a more female-focused cast, building up female heroes, playing into girl power pandering, and retiring old male characters to make way for it all. And it ended with them running right back to the old male characters when it didn't work out. Daredevil Born Again is the new bedrock the MCU is basing itself around. Spider-Man is the only hyped movie they have left in the tank. Punisher is getting more projects. Hell, Bernthal saying he wants Frank to be a character for cops or military guys to appreciate is a million times edgier than any attempts at social commentary in She-Hulk. Obviously, I cannot recommend Attorney at Law. Not if you like the MCU, and especially if you like Jennifer as a character. It's not for you. It's for a hypothetical audience of rich liberal white women that it just barely appeases as it is. Ignoring that they too probably want something that doesn't feel like it was filtered a million times and left as a product. Not a show, not a comic book adaptation, not even as a time killer. A product. A name on a checklist. And considering that Tatiana Maslany has shown zero signs of wanting to come back to Marvel, my guess is that's going to be a while for Jennifer can come back, which is probably for the best. You see, there's a lesson to be learned from this whole disaster, and that is, white guys have the ultimate privilege. Now, don't misunderstand and think the She-Hulk show has converted me to the ways of the anti-homeless benches. No, white guys in media have the ultimate privilege of having no rules. If you make a white guy your main character, they aren't given a million different bullshit rules and standards that they have to abide by. You're allowed to make them a character, not a representation. They can be a blind Catholic lawyer who fights crime and struggles with his principles, a young man whose life has radically changed thanks to his superpowers and is forced to grow up far too soon thanks to his responsibilities as a hero, a mentally broken vigilante that needs a war to fight to not think about his own survivor's guilt, a billionaire philanthropist seeking redemption, cryogenically frozen war hero, Asgardian god of thunder, a kid raised by aliens after being abducted from Earth and becoming a space outlaw, a centuries-old mutant that just wants a place to belong. Jennifer Walters was sabotaged from just being a white woman because the writers couldn't make her naturally flawed or fun. They had to make her a symbol, to use her to call out misogyny. She was never allowed to just be Jennifer Walters, because being an individual means making some choices that others don't like, and the MCU could not allow that, to let her potentially upset someone. The only ones she'd be allowed to upset were acceptable targets, dudes who go MCU on Twitter, which is the ultimate joke. She-Hulk doesn't appear strong in her show, at all. She's weak, mentally weak, emotionally weak, someone who needed a reality check to make her understand what she had, but she never got it, because then that'd be saying the audience needed a reality check. She-Hulk Attorney at Law is the solo leveling of the MCU, all hype moments and aura farming, but unlike solo leveling, it can't even do that right. I never pointed at the screen and clapped when Jennifer hit the bad man. I just played Max Payne 3 and waited for the runtime for the episode to be over. Nothing ever pulled me in. Not as a Marvel fan, as a guy looking for a sitcom, and especially not as a fan of She-Hulk. There's very little imagination in the show, which is astounding considering the whole point is to come up with different wacky cases for them to tackle in each episode. It just all felt fake. That's the word I keep coming back to over and over again. So much of it feels fake. Artificial. Like nobody really gave a shit. There's a tribute to the old 80s Hulk show in the finale, basically a shot-for-shot recreation of the intro, and I felt nothing. I don't hate She-Hulk Attorney at Law. It's worse than hatred. I felt nothing. I don't care about any of it. I just can't work up any real emotion. Half-hearted amusement at the rare joke that seemed to work? Maybe. But never once did I think Season 2 could iron out some of these issues and it could be a gem. No, I just didn't give a shit. Even when they revealed Scar, Hulk's son from the Planet Hulk storyline, I just didn't care. It didn't even make me mad that we were robbed of a Planet Hulk movie due to contract dispute shit. I didn't care if it got better. I didn't care if it got worse. I didn't care about the characters, the story, the jokes. Even the much reviled twerking scene just had me feel nothing. The only real thing I felt was a desire to find whichever asshole on the writing staff was a Megan Thee Stallion fanboy and shove a stapler up his ass sideways, because Jesus Christ, you could play a drinking game with the amount of name drops in that episode. The show simply wasn't funny. And obviously humor is subjective, but shitty comedians exist. People's standards for comedy are all different, but everyone knows bad comedy when they see it, and it's the worst possible thing you can do. Bad drama can be funny, bad horror can be funny, but bad comedy is almost always irredeemable, since the point of comedy is to amuse, and a bad comedy means it failed to amuse you. So what's the only end state there? Annoyance and apathy, which is exactly what I felt. I guess if you're absolutely dying to see how bad the show is, you can check it out, but I can't recommend it. It's not going to be fun. So much of it felt like it was written by aliens just barely able to comprehend human media. And the worst part is that it comes from a company that has shown they can do better. She-Hulk is bad. Very, very bad. Avoid unless you know what you're getting into. It's a testament to their failure. But do you know what else you're getting into? Gamer subs. Use code TAL at checkout. The show sucks. Buy gamer subs. I have a headache because of the show. Buy gamer subs. All you have to do is have Santa Claus help Jennifer solve a murder. Use code TAL. Use the code. But yeah, I'm calling here. This show is one that I'm not going to miss, nor have any real desire to try and rewatch. It's just there. May it be forgotten, and may we eventually get an adaptation that actually lets Jennifer be more than some out-of-touch douchebag's mouthpiece. Until next time, please remember to like, comment, subscribe. See you guys. Hey, loser. Do you want a shirt? Do you want a t-shirt? I have shirts now. Look in the description for a link to a t-shirt you can buy. If you don't buy the t-shirt, I'll kill your family. If you don't buy the t-shirt, I'll poison your dog. If you don't buy the t-shirt, you're going to be the only person in town that does not have a t-shirt. Everyone's going to look at you funny. There's going to be social consequences to not having one of these t-shirts. I'm now making express threats of violence against you if you do not buy my t-shirt. I will call the police, tell them how you're not buying my shirt. They're going to plant crack in your house, and they're going to arrest you and then beat you up in a jail cell. Buy my shirt.
BBD and ecstasy, conceited with no self-esteem. She's a teenage dream if you hate yourself. Bright-dyed hair and obnoxious clothes, thinks communism is the way to go. She's a whore, a hole, a dime a dozen, Jezebel. Low-right mind and SSR eyes, 1,000 yards stare for all those guys that she fucked and sucked before you came along. Retarded views on politics, likes to listen to shitty music. She drinks and smokes and toasts out of a dirty bong. She's She's someone's daughter, like a lamb to the slaughter. But honestly, I'd still hit if I could. BPD and ecstasy, 30 years old but acts like she's 16. Likes to go to shows cause she's so fucking cool. Bright-eyed hair but dead inside. Plan B lifetime supply. She's a whore, a hole, gave head since middle school.